So a reminder to clubs everywhere that just because something is free, it doesn't always make it good value, especially when you consider the cost of wages and the fact that often clubs don't even make a profit on a player who only signs a short-term contract anyway. So sometimes it can be better to actually part with money for a footballer, as this list definitely proves. So without further ado, let's go through some of the worst Premier League free agent signings of all time. And to start us off, we have Barcelona to Chelsea in the year 2000, a certain Mr. Winston Bogarde. So the younger generation may not have much clue who this guy is, so let's re-jog your memory a little bit, shall we? So having previously represented the likes of Ajax, Milan and Barcelona, as well as pulling on Holland's shirt over 20 times, Bogarde's free transfer to Chelsea initially had the Blues very excited indeed. However, a change in manager at Stamford Bridge altered pretty much everything. The defender was initially brought in by Gianluca Vialli, ultimately was unfancied by his successor Claudio Ranieri, who found no place in his squad for the Dutchman himself. Bogarde only played 9 top-flight games despite earning a eye-watering 40 grand a week, which, by the way, in 2000 is insane. 40 grand a week in the year 2000, 25 years ago, is insanity for playing 9 top-flight games for Chelsea. He stayed put at the club for 4 years, the entirety of his contract, as Chelsea refused to budge on his wages, and then other clubs were obviously interested in taking him on loan, but obviously didn't really work out for him on that front either. So he just sat on the Chelsea bench for 4 years until his contract was up. There's worse jobs to have, isn't there? So I think it's fair to say Chelsea made a bit of a huge blunder there, costing the club well over 7 figures over the span of his 4-year contract. So making the short journey from Chelsea to QPR was Jose Bosingwa, who got in at number 2. The move happened in 2012. Obviously, Queen's Park Rangers didn't get the best of Jose Bosingwa. I think it's fairly easy to say. A truly disastrous free transfer. Bosingwa picked up his boots at Loftus Road to great fanfare in 2012. Only won the Champions League with Chelsea 2-3 months earlier, so it was already at the absolute top of his game. A goal on his second appearance for QPR hinted at a few positive things to come, but it soon became clear that the Portuguese international wasn't the ideal man to have in a relegation dogfight. The right-back refused to sit on the bench during a game against Fulham. It was obviously fined almost 200 grand out of his own pocket there, so at least the club got some money back off him. While he later infuriated the QPR faithful by being pictured laughing after a goalless draw against Reading, which confirmed QPR's relegation in April. Probably not the best thing to be laughing about just after you've been relegated. 23 appearances and a relegation later for Jose Bosingwa. He then made his way to Turkey, where his career died down. Another one, not the best for QPR, but I think they were known for a few questionable signings back then, to say the least. Number 3, a bit of a surprising one, because in my eyes, I always thought he did better at Aston Villa. It's Robert Pires. Was released by Villarreal, then picked up by Aston Villa in 2010. Only managed 9 appearances at Villa Park. The former Arsenal wide man returned to English football 4 years after leaving North London in 2006, with Aston Villa handing him a 6-month deal in November 2010 after he spoke fairly fondly of manager Gerard Houllier at the time. The 37-year-old World Cup winner was, as you can probably imagine, past his best by then and failed to make any sort of impact at all for the Premier League side. Although in early March it was announced by Pires himself that he would like to stay for the following season. Villa initially responded quite positively to this statement, but admitted no decision would be made until the summer of 2011. And then as it got closer towards that summer itself, it became more and more apparent additional year that Pires wanted was not going to come to fruition. Probably the only good judgment call made on this list. Aston Villa turned him down for the 2011-12 season, saving themselves, millions potentially in wages. And then, Pires went on his merry way, and so did Aston Villa. So we then move back south, down to Portsmouth, more so from Portsmouth to Notts County. I know this is a Premier League list. Notts County did end up signing, but he's a household name, so I thought I'd shoehorn him into this list regardless, even though it wasn't a Premier League club signing the player in question. We've got Sol Campbell. So, Notts County experiment with Sol Campbell himself was short-lived, to say the absolute least. The former Spurs and Arsenal centre-half joined the League Two side Notts County on an eye-watering 5-year deal after his contract at Portsmouth expired a couple of years ago. The Magpies had just been taken over by a billionaire consortium based in the Middle East, so they were flashing the cash about. Sven-Goran Eriksson was the director of football, again, albeit briefly, and they had ambitions of taking County to the Premier League. The great and good of football were linked with a move to Meadow Lane. The likes of Pavel Nedved, Christian Vieri, Patrick Vieira and even David Beckham was touted with the move, and it all seemed too good to be true. And sadly, for the Notts County supporters, it was. Sol Campbell just played one match for the Magpies, a 2-1 defeat to Morecambe, and then subsequently left straight after, talking about broken promises made by the board. And a talk about blue balling an entire fan base. Not ideal. So back up north, we move to the Premier League. Michael Owen's move from Manchester United to Stoke on a free transfer in 2012. So Owen's stint at Stoke was the last English Ballon d'Or winner to have played in the Premier League. Not that it was memorable, of course. Owen joined Stoke after leaving Old Trafford in 2012 with first team regular football presumably high on his list of priorities. However, an early-on hamstring injury sustained in his stint at the Britannia Stadium proved a frustrating setback. Owen struggled to displace Peter Crouch, of all players, in Tony Pulis' lineup thereafter, making a few lone starts in the Carabao Cup, or the Carling Cup as it was known back then, a few sub-appearances here and there, scoring only the one goal during his stay. And although he was only there for one season, it was reported that he racked up a healthy 7 figures in wages over the course of that season. A financial disaster for the Potters, but I'm not sure they're too fussed. And moving on to number 6, we've got another one that I thought was actually more positive at the time, but looking back, yeah, not at all. Joe Cole and his fairly strange move to Liverpool on a free transfer in 2010 after being released by Chelsea. And as weird as it is to say, it's fair that Steven Gerrard didn't help Joe Cole trying to get settled in, let's just say that. He said about Joe Cole, Messi can do some amazing things, but anything he can do, Joe can do as well, if not better. The Liverpool captain remarked after the ex-Chelsea scheme penned a 4-year deal worth around 90 grand a week in 2010. He said, I really fancy Joe Cole to win Player of the Year award this season. In fairness to Steve Gerrard himself, he was hardly alone in that prediction for Joe Cole's arrival on Merseyside, highly touted to say the least. But the England international never really recovered from being sent off on his league debut. There would be just 9 Premier League starts in 2010-11 with a few niggly injuries here and there, partly to blame. He was then shipped off to Lille on loan just 13 months after arriving, a free transfer that ended up costing the Reds over 10 million quid in wages and signing-on fees. Although he did it okay on loan in France, when he came back, he didn't really kick on much from there, and it was absolutely nowhere near justifiable for the wages he was offered. Just 4 goals in total in a Liverpool shirt. And that is how we finish off our list on some of the absolute worst free transfer signings in Premier League history. I've done a bit of calculations to round off the video here, just to see how much money was spent on wages for all 6 players combined. And it is somewhere in the region of around 40 to 45 million quid. Free transfers, not so free after all, are they? So regardless, thank you very much for watching. Is there any sort of obvious ones that I've missed out? Let me know in the comment section below. I may do a part 2, because again, it's only a bit of a brief video. It's around sort of 9 minutes long. But if there's any players that I've missed, I will include it in a part 2. Regardless, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it one way or another. And I'll see you all very soon indeed. Take care. Bye-bye.